Hello and welcome back to the Sport and Crypto podcast, where we talk to leaders in Web3 and sport. Today, I've got the pleasure of being joined on home turf by John Timoney, who is the CEO and co-founder of Uptop. How are you doing, man?
Really good. Really happy to be here. Happy to be in town and do this in person.
Yeah, we got caught on a cold day, which is not too irregular for London, but it's been warm since you've touched down, which is lucky for you.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah. I had a few people say, this week London is the south of France.
So hottest May on record, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
There can be pros and cons to what's happening then, but I've been enjoying it.
Yeah. And why don't you tell us a bit about your background? You've got a really, really interesting career history, I suppose, in terms of what you've done in your previous jobs and then like launching Uptop. And then we're going to get into like what that is and your pivots historically as a business. But first of all, kind of your journey up until now.
Yeah. So, I grew up, I always liked math, was more of a numbers person. I studied engineering in school. When I graduated, I joined a bank, pretty normal kind of after college first job. I was on the app development side, so making different, payments products work, making different risk management tools. Really got to see sort of the underbelly of, how money moves. And it's very complicated. It's very, Byzantine is a good word to describe it. Lots of different systems, lots of different incentives at play. Actually would have to come to, Ireland and the UK often to kind of deal with different transitions in the bank's payment systems. We'd wake up one morning and something was broken and, all sorts of chaos like that.
Especially because a lot of the systems are coded in code that nobody knows anymore, right?
Yeah, lots of legacy software stacks. I mean, my favorite was we had kind of this business process management tool that existed on top of a software stack that was, I think it was a C# like Microsoft kind of thing. But then on top there was a tool that you use to just kind of stitch together flows in operations, right, in payments ops. And it was just no longer supported. The company that had built it was calling us like every year, like, you got to get off this thing. We can't, guarantee that, that it'll work, right? That we'll be patching bugs and things. We were trying to get you on a new thing. And just the idea of moving, the company had really taken this tool and ran with it. There was dozens of systems all talking to different databases and that kind of thing. And just moving off of something like that was an insane headache. So got to deal with a lot of that stuff as kind of an early professional, which was, I found fun, in some sense, but also kind of very enlightening in terms of how you want to see things built. And sort of as I was doing that, there was kind of the emergence of sort of digital first banking. That was like, the Revoluts of the world were starting to kind of catch on. I use a UK example, but we had similar products in the US. And so I joined the Venmo team. It had recently, or a few years earlier, been kind of acquired by PayPal through the acquisition of Braintree. And get to work on something that I was really passionate about, which is like consumer, just what people kind of use every day. I was interested in moving out of kind of this more client-oriented relationships at the bank and then seeing like a consumer kind of app that, my friends were all using and we knew and loved and worked well for us. Still there, uncovered, major kind of architectural complexities in traditional payments, right? So, integrating Venmo into PayPal was a major undertaking. The thing PayPal is really famous for is, managing fraud, right? Basically making online payments doable, right? They solve that problem of people running other people's credit cards or other people's identities through a payment system. And so Venmo needed to benefit from those same kind of controls and models and things like that. So we had to kind of bring the whole system into PayPal. And so you had to have these two this one colossal, payments company and this smaller but, hyper growth, rapidly growing solution needed to kind of start, speaking the same language. And that was incredibly difficult to do. Eventually it got done.
Yeah, I can see the PTSD on your face.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. But yeah, we did a lot of cool stuff there. I was really grateful for my time in that team as well. Lots of good friends and colleagues in the kind of overall fintech and payments industry that I'm still in touch with. And then I did an on-chain transaction on Ethereum. Right.
You did that individually?
Personally. Okay. I was like, okay, I've heard about this thing. I'd been aware of, Bitcoin for a while. There was a big move even at the bank to do some stuff with smart contracts and kind of sort of evolve trade a little bit, modernize trade. So I'd always been curious, but then I was kind of started to use kind of the dApps a little bit more like as an individual. And I was like, wow, software just did this whole thing that I spend like dozens of hours trying to fix per week, like it just works. Right. So that was an aha moment for me for sure. And I decided kind of just to focus my career on it.
And then you say that, is that when you launched Uptop?
No, so I was fortunate that PayPal was launching crypto at around that time. I got to spend time in that team. That was really cool, kind of a 0 to 1 moment for me. It was at first it was a blockchain research group that I joined that then became a more commercial team that, launched the support for digital assets in the PayPal app and the Venmo app, brought it to different markets. So I think it's live in the UK now. Internally in that team, we devised kind of the thesis around PYUSD, which is PayPal's dollar-backed stablecoin, to just kind of take advantage of all that infrastructure, on-chain infrastructure to move dollars that people, need and can trust to remain stable. So we did a bunch of fun stuff there. I rotated around a few more teams as well. But once I kind of felt the pull really strongly to start something, I left, and that was January of 2022.
And what was the idea that you were like, I'm going to pursue? Because I think this is also a fascinating story.
Yeah, we were really wrong. It's just kind of how it goes with the startups. I feel validated now that people sort of see what we saw in the beginning as obvious.
You weren't wrong, timing was wrong.
Timing was very wrong. Yeah, so
what was the original idea?
We were like, okay, money is becoming instant on the internet. That's obvious. Why start a stablecoin business? That would be really a bad idea. There's already Tether and Circle and PayPal's doing this. So money's going to move like that. That's just going to move at the speed of the internet. I think that's obvious. And I think it's becoming even more obvious with every day. So let's tackle all other forms of internet value. So we were like, okay, what are other things that we have? We have vouchers, we have coupons, we have points, we have all of this stuff all over these different these different products and siloed ecosystems. And wouldn't it be great if I could just have that in one wallet that's universal and is kind of an accepted standard? And we bet heavily that the Ethereum standard and EVM compatible blockchains would be that sort of conduit.
Well, you didn't get everything wrong.
We were very wrong in go-to-market. We were like, okay, every big business must be interested in this. And they were. Everyone was interested. We were not right about sort of the maturity of the technology and the platforms. We had to sort of rewind and do very basic things like set up a minting infrastructure for something, right? And create centralized APIs so that people could mint decentralized assets, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we're doing that kind of thing.
I did this interview with the Courtyard CEO, Nico. I don't know if you watched or listened to it.
I know the team, yeah.
So he was kind of running me through everything they had to build at the start of that platform. He was like, we had to do USDC acceptance, like not that many people knew how to do that. We had to do fiat on-ramp, pay by credit card, like all this stuff. He was like, we built all that stuff from the ground up. He was like, if I was launching this now, you just click like 20 buttons off the shelf and you've got it, right? So it's a whole different ballgame now.
And every one of those kind of categories is a pretty big business now.
Yeah.
And so people have built some really successful businesses just, trying to integrate stablecoin on and off ramps, for example. Like that's been a huge category. Or orchestration, Stripe acquired a huge stablecoin orchestration success story in Bridge. And this stuff's starting to get used day to day, and primarily abstracted from consumers, right? So we shared that kind of thesis, but we were very heavily kind of building APIs for, big consumer brands that were interested in maybe in NFTs as a primitive, but they weren't really feeling a obvious pain point.
Yeah.
And that was like the biggest learning as a founder is like, if you're not focused where the obvious pain point is, like for example, we're going to need, when cell phones still can call landlines, right? Like you're going to need connectivity between fiat and crypto. Like that's an obvious pain point in a few different places. It's not huge right now.
Love that
analogy there. Yeah, right. Like that's the way these networks go. So you got to focus there. You got to solve all the kind of sort of blockers and just kind of get gritty with this kind of stuff. We were sort of operating in a more esoteric, like we're going to bring the world on chain. And that was a little bit naive. Yeah.
And so talk to me about the pivot. Like how do you end up from doing what you've done, then launching Uptop with the thesis that we want to take vouchers, coupons, digital value outside of fiat or crypto to what you're doing now, which is not totally different, but taking some of those learnings and superimposing them onto kind of fan engagement in sport.
Right. Yeah, it was a journey. I'll take you back to, we weren't the only pie in the sky kind of like dreamers around this area. There was a few people at every big, payments company that were tasked with kind of like innovating in the category as well. I won't, get too specific, but we were working with a massive international company to sort of tokenize loyalty assets for their many, many customers. Multi-billion-dollar company with a lot of partners. And we were sort of building out all of that infrastructure. It was still very R&D. The thesis was, can we help, banks especially get the billions of dollars they have on their balance sheet of these like rewards liabilities onto a blockchain ledger associated with a consumer account, associated with a credit or debit account, and kind of, bring all of this infrastructure into a solution that could be inherited by any sort of consumer card program. And then FTX happened. Right. So like that, that was very much in flight, and then it was still in flight. And then slowly but surely the banks that we were kind of distributing through this channel partner to were like sort of dropping off, kind
one
of
by
like,
one. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah, slowly, hey, this meeting, between this meeting and the last one, now there's a few weeks, that kind of thing.
And so that's late 2022, right? When FTX happened.
Yeah, and then probably into 23, we were still very focused on this.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of, I feel like there was a lot of scars and a lot of kind of lack of sort of intentionality around bringing stuff that had been sort of the inception was in 2022, the kind of 2023 period. was where it all kind of would slowly fizzle away. And we had customers, like we did some activations for a large international music festival. The Empire State Building is a customer of ours that mints proof of attendance kind of collectibles for visits. We were doing things here and there, but the big initiative was around banks and their card programs. So that kind of dropped off. And, Ross and I, my co-founder, we had to take kind of like a hard look at each other and say, this is just not going to work. It's not for today. Maybe it's for the future, right? And so, we had a lot of kind of good support and folks who we'd bounce ideas off each other. We had recently hired Zach Sibo, who and you're connected with from Sweet, the NFT marketplace that works with the NHL and the MLS on their kind of like fan moment programs. And he said, we have all this kind of, we had been avoiding sports like the plague, to be honest. So we're like, this is like, seems like a tough business to break into and to get right and to make money in. But he was like, why don't we just have a few conversations? Like we think that what we've built and this infrastructure could be significant to this industry, where at the very least we know there's a lot of consumer attention. There's a lot of fan love. There's going to be high velocity testing, right? Like if we introduce something, fans will try it. We'll find out what works. Let's kind of maybe take what we're thinking about with these rewards networks that can be monetized and that can be very, very profitable if done right. We talked about Starbucks before we started recording. We talked about, the airlines and how they do it. Can we take some of those primitives and translate it to sports? And so we had some early conversations, and I was just shocked. Like, and I'm a sports fan, right? Like, when I was born, my aunt got me my mom's from Spain. She got me the Real Madrid, like, junior fake socio card and, at birth. So I was born into this thing, and, I've always been a huge fan of sports. And then I was like talking to teams, and there just wasn't a coherent strategy around engaging their fans. There just wasn't. It's like, it's not their fault, right? The team's product is the team, right? Like they invest everything into the team. Like I was in a conversation this morning with a football club and they were saying that, if they take a sponsorship, right, they can amortize it over a few years, but all of that kind of budget can be applied to financial fair play, for example, right? And that's what they care about. They landed the sponsorship, so they've opened up the, in the US, we'd call it the salary cap for the franchise system. But here it's like now for FFP, I have a little bit more to work with. Let me go phone up the GM, the manager, and say, hey, we're on. We
can give this guy a contract.
Sign this guy.
Player,
That's the product. They're really good at that. That's why we all watch it. And everything has to revolve around that. It's almost like hyper specialization, right? So a team, that's their product, is the team, and I think that's a really good thing. That means their digital teams have to be very, very lean and effective, right? They have to figure out who to partner with, how they have to be very careful about what risks they take. And we just knew this thing and existed in fintech and in payments and in loyalty that was extremely profitable if done right. And it just hadn't been brought to sports in like a bundled way, in a way that could be, hey, we tested it here with a big team, and now another team can trust it and say, this actually works. Like, we're going to go follow this model. You have to bundle it perfectly. You can't half-ass it. And so there was a lot of room to design something new.
And if you were to kind of summarize Uptop now, with all that context, what is it?
Yeah, so we're the fan engagement platform for driving partner revenue and fan satisfaction, basically. And it's not, the tech stack is not relevant, right? It's like we make the pie of value bigger for reaching your fans in an owned way.
It just so happens to use blockchain.
Yeah, every fan has a wallet, right? But it's an owned channel that is not some third-party platform that can extract rents. It's an owned channel for the team. We make fan engagement economics work, rewards programs work by issuing loyalty currency and selling it for partner revenue. I would say, at least in the US, we're probably the first to platformize this kind of open loop loyalty system for sports. I've heard some really good examples, more traditional fintech plays. In Portugal, there's some clubs that have pursued this through their membership bases. There's like a lot of network benefits, like, at the pump, you're earning, kind of credits or different things. It's like Benfica and Sporting, right? Like they're so dominant that, all the national brands want to reach that audience of, hundreds of thousands of members, if not, 1 million members. So they've been pretty advanced with this stuff, but we're definitely the first kind of, and they built a lot of that in-house, right? So we're the first kind of platform to do that, to issue loyalty currency and be able to sell it to partners and distribute it through an open system.
Okay, very interesting. I mean, I knew a bunch of this, but learning on the go here on the podcast as well. So off air, before we kind of get into the intricacies of like why blockchain is useful for this, and then kind of into the weeds of some of the examples that you've got, some case studies as well. We were talking off air about Starbucks, Nike, Reddit, a bunch of like really big brands outside of sport entering the blockchain space, entering Web3 in a real diverse, like, Reddit with Reddit NFT avatars, I think hugely successful, even though I don't think it's running anymore. Starbucks had Odyssey, which I think in its own right was a pretty successful Web3 loyalty program.
Yeah.
I think what Nike did with .swoosh was awesome until they stopped doing that. I think, there's a plethora of reasons in terms of Polygon.
Yeah, they acquired and then sunset the NFT
as well. Yeah. I think there's, a plethora of reasons of these things. Yeah. All of them were on Polygon. Potentially the kind of funding dried up there, and the revenue model might not have been that great for any of those brands. But actually they executed really, really well. And I'm sure when you were looking at those things in 22, 23, even going into 24, you must have still been thinking like, this makes a lot of sense. We're building kind of adjacent to that. These big brands are doing this stuff. It's going to work. And I distinctly remember, I think it was at NFT NYC in 2023, someone in the crowd asked me about Starbucks. They were like, is this thing like finally the consumer use case that we've been waiting for? And I was like, it's doing really well. The real test is going to be, will anyone care about coffee? And the person asked the question, they were like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, the reward system to keep, it's transactional, right? You buy coffee, you get points. Beyond getting more free coffee and some other accessories or whatever it may be, there isn't something that you can offer someone that is so potent and powerful that it makes that feedback loop utterly unbreakable. And, some of the things that Starbucks did, they were saying, you collect these stamps, really good. They had the kind of Discord, token gated, and there was this kind of like one-to-one experience for Starbucks that became one-to-many. But actually, if you need a coffee and you see Costa across the road and the next Starbucks is 2 miles down, you're going to the Costa because you need the latte to start your day.
Right.
You will never wear a Barcelona shirt. I'm fairly certain of that.
No.
Even if there's a really close Barcelona store and you're in Barcelona and someone's giving you a shirt for free, you're not picking it up. And so there is that kind of rabid fandom in sport that means that what you can offer is far more broad. And it's also, how do I put it? Like more addictive for the fans, and there isn't a there isn't an alternative, because as we said, you will never buy a Barcelona shirt. I'll never buy a Tottenham Hotspur shirt. And that means that like we are locked in for lifetime value. We don't have an alternative to spend our fandom monetarily or anywhere else. And I think that's the trick that people missed. And, going back to what I said, which was, will people care about coffee? It's like, if the grand prize is going to where the coffee beans are farmed, is that really that compelling? Whereas a signed Andres Iniesta shirt for a Barcelona fan,
right,
2012, that could be like the best moment of the year, right? And so I think there's a entirely different, pardon the pun, it's a different ball game.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I'll rewind. I mean, you said a bunch of things there, but in the beginning you were mentioning all these mints and all these kind of new takes on loyalty that were happening in kind of traditional companies. And what I was stressed about is like, they should be using our really great minting infrastructure. Like I was like, we really, how much did they, we pay for that thing? Like, we really built it perfectly. But anyway, like what we didn't have, and what we're really happy that we've found, is like actually a way to, deliver an enduring revenue stream. Like, it's a business, right?
Yeah.
And so it's sports, but it's also the sports business. And I think marrying those two things in a very compelling way for the fan is what everyone should be focused on, right? So like a lot of what we do in our loyalty program is like passive earning opportunities. So once people have sort of connected their financials, their wallet, set the whole thing up, they're earning for groceries, they're earning for buying a smoothie, right? It's kind of like this passive stuff. And then they're building up that loyalty ledger, right? And then there's a marketplace, right? And that marketplace is so efficient, right? It's so high margin and effective because of what you're saying. It's a team and sort of fan-driven marketplace. So what are we putting through there? It's a ticketing channel, so you can take points and redeem for tickets. It's a merchandise channel, so you're taking your credits and applying it toward merch orders. It's a physical collectibles channel. We've distributed, dozens of signed memorabilia, like you mentioned, through the program this year. And it's a digital collectible channel. So you're earning kind of badging and other kind of on-chain artifacts, right? So all of that really works because people really care about those things, right? And they're driving their behaviors around loyalty to kind of access that marketplace. So it's a pretty effective channel. We're seeing, and when it's an easy decision, right? And you were talking about, going to Costa versus going to Starbucks, right? If you're earning points towards your favorite team and they're on either side of the street, which one are you going to go to? So what we've seen is double-digit, sometimes north of 20% increases in fealty and to the brand that is an earning brand within the
right. So what we're saying, if I translate this correctly, is you're on the way to the Real Madrid Stadium, the Bernabeu. There's a Costa on the left, a Starbucks on the right. If Starbucks are a Real Madrid partner and you can earn
correct
Madrid points,
yeah,
you're 20% more likely to go to Starbucks.
Yes, yeah, and we're seeing that. We're driving millions of dollars to partners now through the wallet infrastructure, and north of like a million incremental to a certain partner, right? So that's
amazing.
Pretty incredible in terms of the behavioral difference. It's like that person has sort of dropped off the competitor from their list of sort of shopping choices. That's how powerful fandom is.
Yeah.
But then look,
and that's like second order.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's not even going into the club shop.
I think the team, and the Cavs have been really, really good about this. The marketplace has been so robust. There's been a lot of really wonderful kind of fan moments that have emerged from the program where, we've opened up courtside seats multiple times through this program. So people at no monetary costs, direct monetary cost, right? There's been a sponsorship that happened between a brand and the team, but at no direct monetary cost have been able to sit courtside at an NBA game. I've never done that, but it's on my bucket list.
Yeah, they're right. Yeah, stay together.
Yeah, like that's incredible. They've had multiple away game experiences, so flights and hotels included, where fans have been able to claim and then travel to a different city in the US and make a weekend out of it with their family. They did that in playoffs as well. Didn't go the way we wanted, but really, really, really amazing kind of fan moments have been facilitated because of this model, which is like, that's similar to like how folks who travel a lot optimize their travel and get access to different lounges to take a snooze in and different things like that.
To summarize so far, team, partners, you're connecting all of that together using the Uptop platform, blockchain infrastructure, and people don't really need to do much other than like tap opt-in on a banking feed and their credit card, whatever they're spending on.
Correct.
Connect it to the app. You're spending at all these vendors, you're accruing points, and then you can do a bunch of different things with it. I'm curious, like when you're speaking to rights holders and they're saying, it's a blockchain thing, like what is your answer when you're trying to say, this is much better because we're using blockchain?
Yeah, so I mean, again, they're businesses, right? And while our platform has a long way to go, and that's what's great about having kind of design partners and real teams on it. We have plenty of features that we think are going to be really, really exciting. But to start, this is a business, and one of the things is we have to kind of we did all these wonderful things in the rewards marketplace, but we have to manage the budget, and it hopefully is unit profitable, right? Meaning the sponsors are more than offsetting the investments made, right, between the technology costs and the rewards pool. So I mean, for a reward to be a non-fungible token, it's probably the highest margin reward, right? Fans care about these kinds of things. They're badging, they're leveling up. Maybe there's a fan moment that can be ascribed on the chain. That has real value to fans. But the true hard cost on a fast, efficient blockchain is negligible. So already that primitive has been useful to kind of reward without a hard cost and sort of increment the experience that way. So folks feel like owners when they're sort of operating in our platform, and that's our goal. I think further down the line, kind of having a real fan graph that's more open to, because right now all of this is sort of permissioned through our platform. But the vision is long term, like, hey, maybe we open things up to other developers who can leverage our data, right, or reach our fans with different offers, and just make it a completely modular solution. That's why we've been sort of really excited about the infrastructure choice, and it seems to be a pretty straightforward conversation.
I think that's all we've got time for in part one. Part two, I want to dig deep into the kind of successful case study you've got so far. But for now, let's hear a word from our wonderful sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by the Hedera Foundation. The most beloved sports brands understand that what fans want is simple, a reason to be passionate. The Hedera Foundation enables brands and fans to share their passion on-chain using the Hedera network, the most used sustainable enterprise-grade DLT for the decentralized economy. This podcast is also supported by Credenza. Credenza harnesses blockchain technology to power a real-time data synchronization platform that transforms customer data ecosystems. They make data more relevant and actionable for sports brands, teams, leagues, and IP. Find out more at credenza3.com. Right, let's get back into it. Cleveland Cavaliers, before you get into the intricacies of how well it's gone, what you're doing with them exactly, talk to me about the conversations you had with them at first, and what was the moment that made them go, yeah, we're going to do this?
it was pretty fortuitous. They had what we didn't know at the time, but was a pretty robust RFP process to find a fan engagement partner. And they had looked at probably 8 to 10, leading players. And they saw sort of what we saw, which is like the status quo didn't quite do it for them. And some of the main reasons for that, right, are like a lot of what's been built, especially in the US market, has been very season ticket holder focused. So it's all about those high spend customers that are spending more time than average in an arena or stadium, are spending more on concessions. How do we recognize their, spend and contribution as fans throughout a season? It's typically, some sort of loaded value system, some couponing, some discounts, maybe some freebies. And one that leaves out like a whole, segment of the fans, right? Look at any NBA team and their follower count on Instagram, right? Versus their capacity in the arena. And then much less than the capacity is the season ticket member base, right? Which is, you don't sell, well, some teams do, but you usually don't sell every seat to an STM. You have some availability for the kind of open market. So you're just not getting the long tail of fans. So there wasn't, an obvious route to go there for the Cavs. Then all of that is discounting driven, right? So you're a rights holder, right? Your business is making those rights very valuable by making a really strong team and then monetizing the rights, right? So a lot of the players out there were just doing this kind of discounting stuff. Like if you spend X, you get X, right? Kind of your typical punch card type of stuff with the money moving through the arena, but it wasn't like an IP licensing or sort of rights-based play. We saw the same thing. What we were thinking is like, hey, this is an NBA team. They should be able to sort of monetize their fan engagement the way, the best players in loyalty monetize their loyalty ledger, like Delta Sky Miles or Starbucks.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the second thing. So yeah, I mentioned discounting. And then, lastly, like just the amount of time, right, that you're actually at a physical game, right? Even if you are the STM, is incredibly limited, right? So, it's just a few hours a week if you're a religious attendee of a team. And so that's just not a lot to work with, right? 99% of a person's life is outside of the stadium, and 99% of it is, outside of the confines of an interaction with a team. So how do you kind of like take this and bring it to the world outside, bring it to the long tail of fans, and also make it a play for rights holders to monetize? And we were pitching this kind of partner-oriented loyalty model right around that time. So we had just really realized that we should try sports out as a vertical to test this thesis. And we crossed paths with the Cavs and we pitched them. So they saw a team that had the same perspective, but we didn't have a product in market. So it was a great opportunity to kind of co-design something. Mm-hmm. So they looked at it and they were like, yeah, we like what you're saying, but like we got to, come together and build it. So they very much co-built, what C1 of this product is. They really graciously were on like crazy. They were almost like on our Scrum meetings, right? Like we're an engineering oriented team, but we had, involvement from their digital and product folks. Huge shout out to them. Just almost, daily in the sort of tighter periods of the launch, and even still weekly now. So we are constantly iterating, constantly improving together with them, and it was just a co-design process where they were like, okay, someone's saying what we're thinking, let's take a risk, let's come together and see if we can build it. It came to life, and the fans have been really, really receptive now right after the season. North of 20,000 pretty engaged users regularly using the platform.
Amazing. And have you got any other awesome headline stats for us? Sessions, revenue?
Yeah.
Whatever maybe.
Yeah, I'll touch on a few of those things. So it's a high margin revenue channel. The Cavs are really excited about it. They expect it to be a 7-figure revenue channel. So it's growing into that. That's where we are on the kind of commercials. The fan graph, so the fan database grew by 50%. So
wow, the Cleveland Cavs.
The Cavs, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you remember this.
From 20,000 active users.
From our contribution, right?
Yeah.
So now it's like their fan data, their true fan database of really enrolled, like,
that's incredible.
I consent kind of type user to communications and everything goes from like 40 to 60K, which, I'm sure the Lakers and the Knicks have a bigger data set. Cleveland is a smaller city. But, you saw in the Spotify deal with Barca, for example, this famous case, right? Like they were...
I'm glad someone else is mentioning it, not just me.
I
do it literally almost every episode.
Yeah, so there we go, right? They didn't have these enrollments. And so driving enrollments is like a big part of it, right? Because part of your value as a club is your reach, and so we've increased that. Then, we're doing a lot of like off-game engagement stuff. So now you can also do the over-under and the spread on our points ledger, like for every game. So fans are using the points ledger to predict and earn. It's no loss kind of structure. And so that's happening in our app. So we're retargeting people constantly. So yeah, a lot of really, really cool stuff that's kind of emerged out of this. And really exciting stuff coming next season too.
And how much easier is it to plug in I know you said you're on a kind of permissioned model right now.
Yeah.
How much easier is it to plug in partners to like a software stack which is almost open source, right? Like obviously I'm not an engineering background, but the way it was explained to me on one of our episodes once was like, if everyone's sitting at a different table, it's very hard to speak. If everyone's at the same table, it's a lot easier to talk and hear each other. And so presumably, like when you're speaking to partners and you're trying to plug them in, rather than plugging in some like janky database into another one, you've got kind of this more quasi open source blockchain based one that allows for a lot easier integration into partners.
Yeah, that is the long-term vision, is like, we want to one day just be able to like say like, here's the access, do your thing.
Yeah.
Right? Today, we're not ledgering all points. We're ledgering kind of like the fan identity and the on their badges. So we're not kind of doing on-chain point sales. But that is definitely like a vision for the future that we have, which is just like, hey, you wanna target Cavs fans, or you want to target Knicks fans, or you want to target Real Madrid fans. Let me just buy this thing. It's available from the faucet, right? Like the way you would kind of like on a blockchain, right? Let me just go access this this fungible, which is a loyalty point, and I'm going to distribute it in my regular course of business. And that's super possible, right? Like if you were doing a merch drop and you wanted IP affiliation, like you could go that route with this tech stack. And that's where we're really, really kind of interested in taking things long term. We think the future of commerce will look like this.
Yeah.
Kind of harken back to our very wrong view of what was going to happen in 2022. Now that we have these primitives, I think it's kind of like all coming back, and you could do a lot of really, really interesting things. You can token gate. there's platforms like Republic, for example, that I'm sure you know well. They're launching a lot of kind of like fan ownership campaigns and raises through tokenized like equity offerings. Like that can seamlessly talk to our platform as an example. Like, hey, someone could sign a transaction, represent themselves as an owner, and unlock a set of benefits within Uptop. Those kinds of primitives are only possible with this kind of architecture.
It's really interesting to hear you say that, and I just wanted to pull on one string, which is now that you've built this, as you said, co-designed with the Cavs, you're speaking to a bunch of teams, I'm presuming. I'm sure there's a lot of them that are saying, and what else? And so like, I'm curious to hear, what are some of the good ideas that teams have had where you're like, yeah, we could do that?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking to a big sports tech company that is in kind of more in the media space. And they had mentioned to me, I won't mention the specific team, but that, there was this huge RFP out for like the solution, right? For, what they looked at and were like, wow, like this is super forward thinking. And it included wallets, it included stored value, it included, in-venue currency, right? Bringing all of this back into like the thing and seamlessly talking to the point of sale systems, which is something that we're hoping to trial by next season as well. So taking all that value back, hyper-personalized content based on that fan identity, and then all of the basics, like everything that you need around schedules, rosters, all that kind of basic stuff that you would have in any team app, ticketing integrations, right? And they were looking at it and they were kind of talking to us and saying, hey, you could form a part of this, and maybe we collaborate, right? And what we realized is like, and this is a unicorn business, no one in the industry could service this RFP.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just impossible.
Too much.
It would have to be stitched together. So there is no Microsoft for sports. It doesn't exist. The use cases are so unique and the tech stacks are so fractured right now. So I think that's what it's exciting about what Credenza does. And you mentioned their sponsor of the show. I've met Sandy a couple times. We're going to see him next week. Like, it's interesting to think like there could be a platform that looks like the operating system for sports, mm-hmm. and for sports fans, complete with content, identity, wallets, loyalty and rewards marketplaces, and all of the functional stuff that you need. Pretty excited to kind of find the right allies to sort of stitch this thing together.
And I want to touch on what you said before about the future of e-commerce in terms of, I'm doing a merch drop and I want to target all Real Madrid token points holders, right, that are on chain. Is there any like copyright or legal ramifications around that? Because like it's always been interesting to me that on permissionless ledgers, anything that can happen will happen. And so you are a insidious or adult brand and you go and target like FC Barcelona points holders or whatever it may be. Like, is there also some off-chain elements that no matter how on-chain we get with all parts of the tech stack, that it's still really difficult to kind of manage?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think, and it's not the case today, I really don't think that you would launch call it like a fully self-custody, wallet experience within the context of a sports team, without exposing fans to risks. So I don't advocate for that. We don't do it. I really think that, it's possible to bridge the best of both worlds and to have like kind of like a fintech in the front experience. And that's what's happening with stablecoin payments.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? Like stablecoins inherently don't have, the ability to cancel a transaction, right? Like if it's push payment, if you send it, it's gone.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have the keys to the other side, you can't reverse it. So what's happening? Inevitably someone is, helping you along with that primitive and taking you on a journey and kind of introducing piece by piece the higher levels of complexity as they need to be exposed. And I think that's true with any product. It's no different in this world.
I guess before we go on to a couple of final questions, like broadly speaking, why is the time now for blockchain within the consumer space, specifically sport? You mentioned 2021, 22, you were building a lot of the stuff yourself.
Right.
Is it teams are coming to the fore and now already? Is it the technology being ready? Is it a mixture of all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, like we had, there was coverage in the Sports Business Journal of the Cavs Rewards program and some mention of the on-chain elements. They had previously done an NFT drop with Sweet, actually. And so some folks came out of the woodwork. They've been like, I've been thinking about this for a long time. I really want to test this tech. And that was why they reached out. The majority of the people that reached out after that publication were like, hey, let's see how we can get some more partnership revenue with the solution. And that's what we want. We want to be a business, but we want the folks that are forward thinking to be able to sort of engage with us and experiment with new primitives. I think the time is now because if I were to fast forward, 5 years, a lot of what this looks like is like we're inheriting some of the best primitives from the market. Like, for example, all of Polymarket's prediction market smart contracts, right? Like already exist.
Yeah.
If there was ever some sort of on-chain wagering solution that a team wanted, for example, or a new league that's launched wants sort of all of their fans to have skin in the game. They want their ownership represented by a token, and then they want people to be able to kind of like participate in prediction markets. Like that already exists.
Yeah.
Like it's all there just for us to use. Yeah, it's so beautiful, and like I don't need to be as smart as Shane from Polymarket to figure it out, right? Like they've done it. Call Sheet isn't an on-chain product, but they're being leveraged by Robinhood now for
Crypto.com
for sports prediction markets. It's so all of this stuff, it's getting pretty robust. I think you still have to do the hard work of, working with a customer, working with a team. Ultimately, there's no replacement for that FaceTime where you figure out what exactly the goal is for this set of fans. So there's no replacement for that. Mm-hmm. But I think that as the asks get more complicated, the infrastructure is also getting better. So we're inherently collaborative. We wouldn't be building in this way if we weren't.
What are you still a bit apprehensive or bearish about? Like, what are some of the things that people are like getting excited about where you're like, I'm not sure about that?
I'm generally a positive person. I think, a bit of a dreamer and who's been definitely brought down to reality in many points in my life. But I would say what's still missing from this industry, and you find little like pockets of it, and the Cavs have definitely been one of those pockets of kind of like really positive, can-do and joyful sort of collaboration. A lot of this industry is not quite thinking like that every company is a tech company.
Are you talking about sports or?
Sports.
Okay.
Right. It's the new arena, right? The new arena is digital. We think value is digital. That's just kind of our take, but it's not controversial that the arena for like the way people engage with sports is digital. That's why, oftentimes teens are on illegal streaming sites watching sports, right? Because, the subscriptions are expensive. So
you actually just took the next question I had, which is like, no, it's good because your brain was already going there, but we're kind of almost, I don't know, like, I don't want to call it breaking point, but how much more can you charge for a ticket? How much more can you charge for broadcast?
I mean, it's crazy. It's so expensive. Because it's not just a ticket, right? It's like, okay, you're gonna have to have a meal probably on the road, and you're probably paying for parking, and then you get thirsty, you want a soda, or you have a beer with your pals. This it's all adding up, right? And people mention kind of like the Masters as an example of like, they've kept the kind of concessions super consistent in price for, so many years, and people are so grateful. They're like, oh, the egg sandwich is $3 or whatever. And it's like, it's really nice for fans. My favorite thing is you see these, players on Serie A, La Liga, or Premier League clubs, and they're like, putting up an TikTok, and you see the illegal stream in the background.
Or like former players. It's just crazy. Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
And so what we want for the industry, right, is for people to not go against like this tidal wave of digital engagement, right? So they can really reach their fans. And I think there are some solutions. What we do is a small piece of that puzzle. We've talked to teams that are hoping to go live with us that, for example, they want all of the out-of-venue earning to just be stored values to offset your cost on game day, right? So you're getting all of this value in there, and then you're just spending it. So you're taking that kind of affiliate partner revenue and just spending it on offsetting your costs for just showing up to a game. Because that's when the chief complaint that fans make when not renewing a season ticket is not that the season ticket has gotten too expensive. It's that when you add everything up, like it's just gotten too expensive. And so what we don't want teams to do is not see the forest through the trees. I'm so bad with expressions, but we don't want them to like over focus on extractive revenue opportunities and not see that there's this huge opportunity that if you just
wait,
sort of cultivate, right? Every team should be their own platform.
Well, yeah, it's also kind of like the tech company approach of about a decade and a half ago, where it was about growth and users before profitability. Right?
Correct.
And I think we're kind of on that spectrum. We're kind of coming back to normal a little bit more, where there's more bootstrapping, less big crazy Series A's, and so on and so forth. I do think though, like when you talk about sports brands, that there is that kind of usual extractive attitude, and they don't really care whether it's from 20,000 season ticket holders or if it's from 2 million fans on a social channel.
Right.
But actually, like, as you said, grow that pie as big as possible.
Yeah.
And then start to monetize in a more like, in a more organic way. And it goes back to kind of, we were talking about the revenue model in sports is, someone said the other day to me, like, oh, the playoffs have had the highest ever views in a long time,
right.
But the regular season was down. What's the golf tournament? I'm so bad with golf. Had the highest ever viewership, like ever on, I think, Sky in the UK. Right. But like, it costs however many hundreds of pounds a year to get Sky.
I also, it's funny to me because, our population also grows. Like, like I look at numbers and I'm like, I try to be analytical about these things. It's like, if your chart is going just up and to the right, like, what is really a success? And how do you distill those things out? And I think a lot of this will play out. I think the best teams, will have all the commercial advantages to then, like they should do, reinvest in the team.
Yeah.
Will be really forward thinking and willing to break some rules right now and sort of see the dividends later on.
Well, they kind of have to, right? Because if we're both saying, hey, this is crazy expensive on the two most fundamental ways that these teams and leagues make money, which is broadcast and ticketing, like where else does the revenue come from? And I'd hope that some of it comes from what we've been talking about for the last hour.
Yeah, I mean, the one crazy stat I loved that came out was the Kings League had the highest TikTok engagement of any sport outside of the NFL on game day on TikTok.
Yeah.
The Kings League.
Yeah.
Why? It's obvious. Like, it's just there. It's on YouTube for everyone to watch.
Yeah.
You know, the streamers are endorsing it. They're magnetic. And then it's just available.
Yeah.
And I don't think, you know, because like my cousin lives in Barcelona and you know, some of his friends were playing in the Kings League, and these were like people who, you know, maybe they had one or two senior caps in the 4th division.
Yeah.
Not great players that, you know, should be watched by thousands of spectators. You know, good players, but I think we'll have a reversion to the mean where it will be the best players, the best athletes. That's what we've always wanted to see. Yeah. Like, that's why the Olympics is so special, blah, blah, blah. But it will have to be more accessible.
We'll end on that note, because I think that was a really good one. Before we forget about golf or do another bad expression, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so we're findable. I think it's uptop_XYZ on Twitter. Correct it if that's wrong. And we're uptop.xyz online. And yeah, I think that's how you can reach us pretty easily. We're gonna, you know, probably freshen up a lot of those assets now that the season's in the rear view mirror, and we have a lot of nice nuggets to report on.
Amazing. You can find me at Pet Barisha, Twitter, X, LinkedIn. You find us on our website, sportingcrypto.com. You can find the newsletter.sportingcrypto.com. And you can also subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts, or on YouTube. Before we go, just remember that none of what we have said is financial, business, tax, or investment advice. The majority of crypto assets and crypto asset companies are unregulated globally. So do your own research and be careful. Thanks once more, everyone, for listening, watching, consuming this content. We'll have more Sporting Crypto podcast episodes for you soon.